Hello and welcome back to the Dot Connector after a break while I was doing my UK tour. And one of the encouraging things that I found as I met people and saw their responses and their questions as I went around the country is how far ahead or further ahead so many people are, members of the public, than what I call the mainstream alternative media, which is so focused on politics, right-wing politics and religion. And it's good that people are expanding beyond that limitation, because we're entering a period now where what I've called emotional, perceptual blitzkrieg will be thrown at us. And what I mean by that is so many different things like shocks that people have just got their head round one before another one comes in. And I think 2025 is going to be one of those years. And we're already seeing the start of it with the decision by the Biden administration. I say Biden administration, the people that run it, not him. And of course, the Starmer man in Britain to allow Ukraine to use British and American missiles to go into the interior of Russia. And, there's been a lot of kind of hysteria around that, about World War III is about to start. And, we'll have to see how that goes. But it's something that I've been talking about for a very long time. Actually, it started towards the end of the 1990s, that the plan was to bring East and West into conflict. And, the Ukraine situation has actually been a proxy war between the West and Russia for a very long time, because if you are giving weapons and military funding to Ukraine to fight Russia, well, the West is at war with Russia, but it's now becoming more and more blatantly obvious that that's the case. What I'm going to do today is go through some of the Trump picks for his new government starting in January. And what's interesting is how many people that he's picked while he's talking about ending the Ukraine-Russia conflict. How many of his picks actually have a history of pushing for more arming and funding of Ukraine and, quote, punishment of Russia? And another kind of in-your-face, blatant theme of the Trump administration as he picks his names for the positions of power is the, all-encompassing theme of support, obsessional support, biblical support for Israel. And, one of the things that I've been talking about for a long time, it's got me in a lot of trouble. I mean, one of the reasons I'm banned from nearly 30 European countries and Australia is how influential, let's say that, Israel's government and intelligence network, the whole Mossad network, is in countries across the world, not least in the United States. And Trump has been owned by Israel and Israel interests for a very, very long time. It's no surprise that suddenly all these Israel-centric people have been named in his administration. There was a time, I think it was around the 1990 period, when Trump got himself into such financial, well, not even difficulties, catastrophe, not least in his investments in casinos in Atlantic City, that he admitted, you can see the clip on the internet, he admitted at the time that he was in for $1 billion of debt personally, never mind all the companies. And then along came this guy called Wilbur Ross. You know, anyone else other than Trump, or almost anyone else anyway, that would have been the end of him. Gone, kaput. But Wilbur Ross came along. Now, Wilbur Ross worked for 24 years for the Rothschilds in things like bankruptcy, overwhelmingly. And he put together a group of 72 banks to bail out Trump. And at least from that time, you go back further and you'll find it does go back further, but at least from that time, he's been owned by Rothschild and connected interests. And you've only got to look at his major funders in the 2016 election and the recent one, and the one in the middle as well, to see the Israel connection. His biggest funder in the 2016 campaign was Sheldon Adelson, a casino multi-billionaire who is, well, he's passed now, but he was at the time absolutely an extreme supporter of everything Israel. And in this current campaign, because he's passed, like I say, his wife, Miriam Adelson, has put $100 million into Trump's campaign. Now, you don't put that kind of money into a political campaign or a politician unless there's something coming back, unless you get something for your dosh. And we've seen in Trump's picks what is coming back, as we've seen in the past, because Trump, for instance, said that Sheldon Adelson was always on at him to move the American embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. And in his first term, that's what Trump did, of course. So you can see the background to why we've got all these Israel-obsessed, Israel-centric people being picked for the Trump government in January. But what I want to talk about is an angle to this, an element of this, which is not circulated anything as much as it should be. And that is the prophecy that before the coming of Jesus and the coming of the Jewish Messiah, the temple, Solomon's temple, the third version of it, would be built on the site of what Jews and Christians call Temple Mount, which is currently the site of the Al-Aqsa Mosque, this massive center of Muslim worship. And this has been moving forward in the background for a long time, and they're coming to the point where they want to make that happen. So you've got this mosque, you've got you see the golden dome that is very famous, of course, central landmark of Jerusalem. But these people want to replace it with a new third, quote, Solomon's temple. And if you look into the background, you do see how far this has already gone. They are planning to do this. Now, imagine what that would be in terms of conflict, where the Israeli government comes along and says, we're putting our temple back where your mosque is. And what we're seeing is the preparation for that with the demolition in Gaza, and I'm sure what's happening in Lebanon will be connected to this as well. The demolition of Palestinian Muslim power and influence to the point where you so suppress them that you can go for your third temple. And, what's happening is you've got these biblical prophecies. This is a prophecy from Ezekiel in the Old Testament, apparently. And what you want to do is make it appear as if biblical prophecies are happening. Well, they're not happening organically because God has willed it. They're happening because they're being made to happen. And so you are seeking not just to pull in Jewish people in support of all this because they think, the biblical prophecies are happening, the Messiah is coming. You also seek to pull in the Christian world, especially the Christian Zionist world, which is obsessed with Israel, but you want to pull in the Christian world. You want them to believe that their Bible prophecies are happening, while all the time you are making them happen. And it's interesting. I've made this point a number of times in the last year or so, how this Christian centric and Christian focus has been expressed through right-wing politics. Now, it always has been connected to Christianity, right-wing politics, but it's really, really moved center stage in this Trump campaign. And you've seen how so much of the so-called alternative media, what I call the mainstream of it, the MAM, has also become so Christian focused. Now, all this is about building this belief that biblical prophecies are happening, leading to the third temple, when actually it's all being made to happen. So that's some of the background. And as I was going to say a few minutes ago, the prophecies, they're ludicrous. One of them is that in the end times, before this new temple is built, then there has to be the sacrifice of a red heifer And they've now got red heifers in to make that appear to be happening. And so you can start to see the real significance of why this Trump administration is so utterly obsessed with Israel. And so here's a list of picks that Trump has made, just some of them. First of all, he picked his running mate, his vice president, J.D. Vance, an associate of a very significant guy called Peter Thiel, an AI tech billionaire and supplier of surveillance and data processing technology to the Pentagon and the intelligence community through a company called Palantir. He's picked Mark Rubio as Secretary of State, absolutely Israel obsessed. Mike Waltz as the National Security Advisor, ditto. And Stephen Miller, Deputy Chief of Staff with responsibility for policy. He's picked Steve Witkoff, and he's the Special Envoy to the Middle East, and he's absolutely Israel obsessed, as all these people are. Mike Huckabee, I'm going to come to him shortly. He's the pick for the U.S. ambassador to Israel. Pete Hegseth. Now, he's the defense secretary named by Trump, and he's a contributor on Fox News. But you look at the videos that he's made about Israel and the biblical story of Israel, he's absolutely on board with all of this as well. Kristi Noem, she's the Homeland Security pick, and Israel is at the center of her world. John Ratcliffe, director of the CIA, the same. The ambassador to the United Nations, which will be, of course, arguing the case for Israel. That's Elise Stefanik. Lee Zeldin, he's the environmental protection pick, ditto. And then you've got Elon Musk, who's a friend of Benjamin Netanyahu, and Vivek Ramaswamy, Israel-centric, also a business associate of Peter Thiel. And it's Musk and Ramaswamy who are being given the job of cutting government waste and regulation and all of that side of it, getting rid of lots of jobs within government. And I'll come to that as we go along, because that is a great benefit to Elon Musk. Then you've got an ultra-Zionist in Howard Lutnick. He's running Trump's transition team and helping with or even more than helping, actually deciding and advising on the picks that Trump makes. And he's also been named as Commerce Secretary in the new administration. And let's come to Mike Huckabee then. He's the Trump selection for the ambassador to Israel. And he is a Baptist minister, apparently, and completely obsessed with the Bible and the biblical stories and the biblical prophecies, with enormous implications now that he's ambassador for the Trump administration direction. And he is so obsessed with Israel that he won't even describe the West Bank as the West Bank. He has to use Israel biblical terms for it. So this is the extreme of selection that Trump has made. This is Mike Huckabee.
As you well know, I've never been willing to use the term West Bank. There is no such thing. I speak of Judea and Samaria. I tell people there is no occupation. It is a land that is occupied by the people who have had a rightful deed to the place for 3,500 years, since the time of Abraham. So a lot of the terms that maybe the media would use, or even people against Israel would use, are not terms that I employ, because I want to use terms that live from time immemorial. And those are the terms like Promised Land and Judea, Samaria. These are biblical terms. And those are important to me. And so I will continue to follow that nomenclature unless I'm instructed otherwise, but I don't think that'll happen.
So when you look at that, what chance have the Palestinians got? What chance did they ever have of fairness and justice? None. So Pete Hegseth is the selection for Defense Secretary, of course, massively important in terms of what happens in Israel and the support by America for Israel. And this is his view on the biblical Israel and how that relates to today.
If you open up your Bible, God granted Abraham this land. The 12 tribes of Israel established the constitutional monarchy 1000 BC. King David was their second king and established Jerusalem as the capital. Jews were fighting foreign occupiers for centuries, ultimately maintaining a presence there. But the key aspect, and right now, Palestinians, Arabs, Muslims are trying to erase the Jewish ties to Jerusalem as we speak. I've been there multiple times. They're trying to make it look like Jews were never there. The most important aspect of this is the international community granted sovereignty to the Jews, to the Jewish state after World War II, and Israel has had to fight defensive war after defensive war, with every country coming to crush it ever since then, just to exist.
One of the people, of course, who's got a lot of coverage and attention, who's been selected to make America healthy again, is Robert Kennedy Jr. And I hope that he carries out what he says he will. I'll be amazed if anything like all of it gets achieved, but he's another one who is completely obsessed with supporting Israel at all costs, who has justified the mass slaughter that's been happening now for a year in Gaza. And I mentioned Vivek Ramaswamy. He's a guy who he ran for president initially, and then when Trump announced he was going to definitely run, Ramaswamy stepped down. And he's now, of course, a massive Trump supporter. And he's with Musk in this deregulation, save money operation, which is just a cover for what they really plan to do. And Ramaswamy is yet another Israel extremist. I mean, just listen to this.
These are decisions for now is the moment for Israel to return to its founding premise. The Jewish state has an absolute right to exist. A divine gift, gifted to a divine nation, charged with a divine purpose. Israel has an absolute and unequivocal right and responsibility to defend itself to the fullest, applying the only language that its adversaries understand, the language of force. So what would David Ben-Gurion say today? He would say, don't depend on anybody else's fleeting sympathies or permission to do it. If Israel and Mossad want to pull off Munich 2.0 and take out every last leader of Hamas, wherever they may be hiding from Doha to Dresden, host a red wedding at the Four Seasons in Qatar, the next time Haniyeh and Mashal show up, they should go ahead and do it. If Israel wants to at long last abandon the myth of a two-state solution, Israel should go ahead and abandon a two-state solution. The rest of the Arab world can absorb Palestinians just as the Jews absorbed their people out of 22 countries they were kicked out of since 1948. The Islamic world cannot continue to condone the slaughtering of Jews while continuing to disown the Palestinians. That is the hard truth, that neither member of either political party is willing to speak out loud to the Arab world. I will.
Everywhere you look in this Trump administration, you see Israel first, middle, and last. We've got Senator John Thune, who's now the Senate Majority Leader, who's been saying we must support Israel, we must remove any blocks on giving them whatever they want in terms of weaponry to continue the mass slaughter. The Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, has said something similar. And, you know, I keep hearing this stuff about freedom of speech. We must protect freedom of speech. Now, what's happening here? And unfortunately, enormous numbers of people have fallen for it. Is this Trump group has simply taken the route of maximum manipulation of their target audience through telling people what they want to hear. It's a phenomenally powerful perceptual manipulation technique. You tell them what they want to hear, you tell them what you're going to do, which is what they want you to do, and of course then the door is swinging open and they're all for you. Because they want what you're saying to be true. They don't want to listen to people like me who are telling them it's not true, because they don't want that to be true. They want what Trump says to be what Trump will do. So he's talking about freedom of speech. And you know, they put some blocks on censorship. Well, that's a great thing. But at the same time he's talking about freedom of speech, he's openly saying that when he becomes president, he's going to target anyone in the universities and the colleges of America, probably much more widely than that, actually, who he calls anti-Semitic. Now, anti-Semitism, the definition of it, has got wider and wider and wider as the years have passed. So it's now criticism of Zionism, even criticism of the Israeli government. It's anything that the Israeli government doesn't want circulating is now anti-Semitic. That's how it bloody works. And I've been targeted this way since the mid-1990s. So, you know, I know how the whole thing works. If you want to smear someone, you call them an anti-Semite. But they've used it so much that it's losing its power, but not with Trump. And the question is, so who is deciding in the colleges and the universities and the wider public arena what is anti-Semitic? Well, they are. And they'll define it to fit their agenda. So here's Trump just openly saying what he's going to do.
And defend our Jewish citizens in America. My first week back in the Oval Office, my administration will inform every college president that if you do not end anti-Semitic propaganda, they will lose their accreditation and federal taxpayer support. Okay. Truth is, you don't have to do much after that. When you do that, it's going to work miracles. Please sit down. We will not subsidize the creation of terrorist sympathizers, and we're not going to do it certainly on American soil. We're not going to do it anywhere. Next, I will inform every educational institution in our land that if they permit violence, harassment, or threats against Jewish students, the schools will be held accountable for violations of the civil rights law. It's very important. Jewish Americans must have equal protection under the law. They're going to get it. At the same time, my administration will move swiftly to restore safety for Jewish students and Jewish people on American streets.
Of course, Mr. Freedom of Speech, he's not really, if you do the research, is Elon Musk. And he is everywhere at the moment that Trump is. It's like wherever Trump goes, there's Musk. And they visited this, is it mixed martial arts? This, what do they call it? This UFC event. What you're seeing is a big club of billionaires and front people, and also a big club that involves the so-called alternative media, which has become nothing more at its central core than a Trump election propaganda machine. And you see when Trump arrives with his team and the crowd are chanting USA, USA, he makes a beeline for someone who did an interview with Trump just before the election that is said to have been very influential in the election result. Who knows? But that's what's said. Joe Rogan, who is a mate of Musk and now is a mate of Trump. So it is a big club, and you ain't in it. Well, that's as far as we go with the public version of the Dot Connector. To see the rest, go to iconic.com.